they are adapting it, but they are still, I guess, far, lagging in terms of fully utilizing it.
Siddharth, this is still very nascent for us. We are doing 20, 30 crores annually with this kind of spends, but we are investing in it because it is the future.
10 rupee margin out of 100, 10% margin in offline channel. If they are not making money, then 1 mg is also not making money.
What is the ideal approach? Like, how would you say that a brand who is probably doing, let's say, 10 crores right now,
if something or some platform is working for my competitor,
now we are doing an ARR of probably 4 CR, 5 CR, and they are stuck, what marketing channels to deploy? Hey everyone, we are back with another podcast, and this time we are discussing the economic fabric of India, which is MSME. And I know that this is one particular segment which is completely ignored, considering we are only talking about creds of the world, we are talking about Flipkarts and Amazons of the world. On the other hand, 30% of GDP contribution is still being done by MSME. So in this particular podcast, it's kind of a tribute, which I and my partner Nitin also discuss about. We want to discuss them, all this set of businesses which are doing 5 crore, 10 crores, 50 crores, even 100 crores. And we want to discuss how these businesses are doing businesses online, and at the same time, how some of the legacy businesses which fall into these categories are taking their business online. So, with that in context, I think, Nitin, let's start.
yeah, sure,
Anything specific you would like to start with? Because I have tons of things I want to discuss.
you can take the lead.
All right, so I'll start with one interesting anecdote, Nitin. So I realized that while we are working with MNCs, we are working with startups which are very good with digital advertising. I At the same time I feel that some MSMEs which are not even getting recognition, they are simply killing it. I was not aware of it, but while researching for this podcast, I realized 1 in 2 MSME is actually actively using digital marketing as a channel for acquisition, for brand awareness, for multiple things. And this is by specifically a study by Google and KPMG. So I was not aware of this, and it seems that they are already picking things up.
I would say they have started up.
Hmm.
I mean, it's still a long way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Because the kind of MSMEs we talk to, or the legacy business we are talking to, they are adapting it, but they are still, I guess, far, lagging in terms of fully utilizing it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you compare a legacy business to a digital first business, so the kind of digital footprint a legacy business have and the kind of digital footprint a digital first business have is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean the gap is huge. They are trying to cover it, but I guess there are still some challenges, some harsh realities that they have to face, some tough decisions that they have to take, that how they can take their businesses online.
Can you give me like specific instances where you feel that they're finding everything really challenging?
So I would say we can start with one challenge that they are facing is for example, take an example of an MSME business. If they are making 100 CR a turnover in a year, and they start a digital channel with, let's say, 2 CR or maybe 10 CR per year as revenue, right? So their management have to make a call that is that 2% or 10% channel, that is contribution to overall revenue, is it worth it? How much resources we can allocate to it? That is the first channel. Because I remember talking to a CMO, and he said that, okay, I mean, we are doing, let's say, 500 crores a year, and this is only going to contribute 10 CR. So for me, it's a channel which can contribute more in the future, but right now it's peanuts. So they are actually treating it as peanuts.
Hmm. I will give you one another example. I had a conversation with head of marketing India for a global company, which is probably doing $1 billion in sales, right? And I was talking to the head of marketing. He said, Siddharth, this is still very nascent for us. We are doing 20, 30 crores annually with this kind of spends, but we are investing in it because it is the future.
Right.
He also feels that it's not contributing to the business, and I also feel that it sometimes they also realize that this is not something which is priority for the whole organization, but they're still investing in it because they don't want to lag behind.
And I also feel they are calling it the future, but I think it's present and future. Some of them are already lagging behind. It is not just future, it is present. It's happening right now as we are talking. Right? Digital is there. There are companies who are built digitally. So digital is there. It's already happening. It is present. It is future. So you have to deal with it.
I feel there's a mindset problem as well. Why not everyone is adapting it, or their playbook can be very different from a digital first brand. And I'll give you one example again. So I was talking to this owner of a perfume company, uh, and he was comparing himself against, I won't name the brand, but it's probably doing 100 CRs north of revenue just with the perfumes.
Right.
So he was telling, we don't want to become that.
Hmm.
He said, I don't want to burn money. Said that probably the kind of growth they have had, I know that they don't have the money to even pay to their manufacturers. So he said, I don't want to be that company. I have manufacturing in house and I just want to keep it slow. So while the other company, the leader in the company, they are doing great, but we really don't know whether the strategy that they have followed is also going to be fruitful in the longer run.
Yeah, I will, like, I take it in another way. So I'll describe the same thing as another challenge. So what I would say is, so let's say you have 10 rupee margin out of 100, 10% margin in offline channel, right? So when a legacy company, or I would say an MSME, adopting to an online channel, they expect that margin to be the same,
Yeah, that's a major. That's what actually I was pointing to. They
right?
feel that the digital and the offline, the way they have traditionally built business, they are going to look exactly the
Exactly
same.
the same. So they want that, okay, if I'm making 10 rupees or 10% in offline channel, I'll be making the same 10 rupees or 10% in online channel.
Yes.
But that is not going to happen. And I would say the primary reason that they are forgetting or they are not taking into account is that offline channel that they are comparing with, it's an established channel. You already have a system in place. You already have your distribution in place. But when you are building a new channel, when you are building a whole new distribution, whole new processes, then your margins will go down the drain. So coming back to our earlier point, when you are building your distribution for the future, then you have to make that call that, okay, for this particular amount of money, for this revenue, I'm not going to look for profits. I'm going to look for building out the processes, building out my distribution, that if I can make like 1% to 10% businesses with the new channel, that going forward my profit percentages will increase from this.
That here's my another question to you. We know for a fact that certain categories, they don't make money in the very first acquisition when they are kind of advertising for the first time. Right? I'll name certain categories where it has become extremely difficult to advertise and make money in the very first transaction. The first, of course, being skincare. The second, I can particularly put the nutraceutical category, right? So
Right.
you're definitely not making money for the first few months, if not years. How would a MSME owner who is probably taking his manufacturing unit and making a brand out of it, uh, how are they going to reconcile the two different approaches?
I mean, it's plain and simple. If they are not making money, then one MG is also not making money. It's not like one is making money and the other is not. That is not the case, right? Everyone who is not making money in the very first purchase is building out on LTV, lifetime value, or in layman language you can say repeat. Do you have a customer repeat for your product, right? If you have, then definitely you are going to make money. If you don't, then maybe I don't think even you are going to make money in offline channel as well. So if you don't have a repeat, then your offline will also not work. It's not just that online will not work, because repeat is everything when you go for a B2C business, right?
Correct. But here is my another predicament even after this. Right? So when you are doing this kind of activity, definitely you need to run with certain amount of profits. Very
Right.
simply, like if I'm making probably 100 rupees from my offline ops, right, no, offline sales, I can only invest that much, or I can take only that much loss from the digital channels, and naturally I cannot increase my ad spend on those platforms, right? So what is the ideal approach? Like, how would you say that a brand who is probably doing, let's say, 10 crores right now, right, from their offline sales, what is their first approach should be when they're trying to go online?
I think first approach should be to segregate the returns into two buckets. One would be a direct impact of online sale, which is an online sale, right? A direct impact of online advertising. Second would be a jump in your offline sales, because marketing or advertising just not going to affect one channel. The effect, there will be ripple effect. So as you know, when the MSMEs, the kind of MSMEs we are working, we primarily started out building an online channel, but eventually what we realize is that whatever marketing we are doing, it's also contributing to their offline business, right? So first you have to realize that how much you are expecting as a direct sale, direct online sale, how much you are expecting as a ripple effect on your offline sale. Once those expectations are in place, then the next thing will come is yes, that we are going to build it for the future. It's a new channel that we are building, so the profit margins are not going to be the same. It will depend on business to business. So suppose in offline channel, if my percentage gross margin is around 20%, maybe in online it is going to be 10% or 5%, but definitely it's not going to be 20. That is for sure. Yeah. So I think that mindset is needed.
But my question was, even I'll take it even deeper. I wanted to understand from you more from the D2C versus marketplace context. All right. So again, there is another data that I read while researching for this. So all the MSMEs which are actually active digitally, 42% of them are doing sales on Flipkart and Amazon, all these marketplaces,
Right.
which is a very good number. It's almost like 4 out of 10 MSMEs,
Right.
right? So I want to understand from you, if you had a brand like that, if you had brand which was doing 10 CR, 15 CR, 20 CR, what would your first step? Would you go marketplace? Would you try D2C? And I know that it varies, your answer varies from category to category, but what's your general view on this?
So I mean, if you have a premium product, so for example, if you are jockeys of the world, then I would say you can go for a D2C approach, right? But if you are into mass segment, then I would say marketplaces would be the ideal category. That is one parameter that you can take into account. Second would also depend on your profit percentage or your gross margins. If you have a high gross margin business, then you can only go for a D2C first approach. If you have low gross margin business, then marketplaces will be best suited for you.
But can you give more context to high margin, low margin? What would be considered a low margin versus what would be a high margin for in D2C context?
Anything below 50 is low margin. If you are going 40% gross margin, 30% gross margin, then D2C is not for you.
And what categories do you feel fit into it?
It depends. I mean, I guess there are a lot of categories even in fashion. I mean, there are fashion brands which have up, 60, 70% gross margin businesses. Artificial jewelry, 60, 70%. Footwear, 40, 50, 60. I mean, depending upon what price range you are looking into. And then you have personal care, that is also above 50. That's why we see a lot of personal care D2C brands.
Yep.
And then you have even in healthcare. So I mean, in every category you will see brands which are high gross margin businesses, upwards on the range of 40 plus. And I guess those are probably suited for a D2C approach. Less than 40, definitely not. You're not meant to be do D2C as of now. Let's focus on marketplaces first.
Right, right. So this is more about like how to actually go about doing sales for certain products, right? But it just brings me to then another part of it. So a lot of times you will notice that the brands that we engage with, these legacy brands, generational brands who are trying to go online, we really notice that even if they are getting sales, one thing that they really struggle with is branding. And you know the biggest problem is, in my purview, they don't even know that it's a branding problem.
Can you please elaborate when you say
Yes.
what do you mean by branding problem?
I'll give one example. So just this morning, I was talking to a brand which has hair oil, which has some Shilajit products, and it also has some personal care products. He's trying to sell everything, and all the products do not fit into a single category.
Right.
Right? It's not a problem if you are simply focused on sales, but if you really want to make it big, you will hit a hurdle because your customers won't know what the brand stands for. I really didn't understand this like in the earlier years of my career, but now it really makes sense. Unless your customers identify you with something, they're not going to come back to you again to make a purchase. And I think this is, I feel it's even a bigger and broader mess. So while the brands, the MSMEs which are trying to go online, they struggle with generating sales digitally. They also struggle with making their brand, I think, relevant. So I want to understand if you have to give some tips to someone who is trying to build a brand online and not just generate sales, what would their approach be?
I think as you said that product positioning is important. So if you position yourself in a certain category with a clear messaging that what you stand for, what problem you are solving, and what makes you special in this category or subcategory, I think you have already solved like half of your branding problems, right? So I mean people talk a lot about brands which come from tier 2 tier 3 cities. So Kesh King, or you can say Pet Safa. So their name, their positioning, it's very clear what they are for,
Mm-hmm.
what problem they are solving, right? But if you try to solve everything and you have every product for every problem, then I think it becomes a lot more messy, that customer get confused that what is their specialization,
Yeah,
right?
right, right.
So we are in an era that when we have three different cricketing teams for three different formats, so it's not like one player is fit for every format.
Mm.
So we are in that kind of an era.
Right.
We cannot have one team for every format. So similarly, one brand, one positioning cannot solve everything.
I think yeah, there are so two area, parts to this. So the example that you gave, Kesh King, is fantastic because the product is the brand,
Right.
right? So it's not like Kesh King is a singular brand like Patanjali under which I have 10 different products.
Right.
It itself is a brand, right? The problem I think arises when you have five different products and you don't know what to put it under. And I think recently this brand which got acquired by Antara Capital, Anvea,
Hmm.
it has three different brands. So one was Thriveco, the other was Anvea, and another was Curlwana. Each of this brand was trying to solve a different problem,
Right.
and which is fantastic in the sense because if you were trying to sell all of these products under one brand, probably Anvea, I'm quite sure it wouldn't have worked out.
Right.
So I feel that this differentiation is very hard for a founder, even for someone who's running a legacy business, to understand because you're just so focused on sales most of the times. कि top line क्या है, profits क्या है, even profits in this case, right?
But I guess that's where the marketing agencies comes in. Yeah. So I think it's their kind of responsibility that they can suggest that okay, I mean this is not going to work probably, and you might have to reposition some of your products.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, that if someone lands on your website and he sees that okay they are trying to solve everything, then you lose your credibility.
Right, and it's also it's also very difficult to say that how to approach this. I mean, you of course gave the example of marketing agency, and of course I still recommend you to go for a marketing agency. But then there is multiple areas or gray areas where the founder doesn't know how to approach, because in one point of time you may not need a growth marketing agency, you may not need a branding agency in that point of time. What is the selection process should be, right? I know that there are 3 4 different, some people just start with website, right? कि चलो वो बनाते हैं, let's see what the sales look like. Let's say I'm at a zero position, right? What is my approach? Who should I hire first, or should I hire a person, a consultant? Should I hire a marketing agency? And there are at least a spectrum of views on this. But what would you recommend, considering that we are unbiased, right?
Right. Right. So I think firstly a legacy business will not be at a zero point. So in our today's context, I think that will not be relevant.
No,
Because
I'm saying from the context that they understand the offline sales,
Hmm.
and they have a sales channel. Basically, they have a distribution channel, but they don't know how to take it online. Like and this is a case which I have already seen. Like they don't have a single person in the organization who understands the digital aspects of marketing.
Got it. So I think the first thing that they need to do is to replicate what's already working for them in offline space.
Hmm.
So what I mean by that is, so if you have, let's say, 20 products in the market, right? So you already know your hero products. So 80% of the sales might be coming from 2 or 3 products. So let's start with those 3 products online first instead of launching all 20. Right. So whatever learnings that we have in offline space, that what is my best product, what is my best in terms of demography, geography, what is working for me in offline, let's try to double down that in online first. So that will shorten your learning curve. So as you said, that if some legacy businesses with 20 products launch today online, they should not launch with 20, they should launch with 2 or 3 products, which is the hero products, into a demography which is already working. So that alone will solve, I guess, 40 to 50% of their initial struggle with sales.
Right, makes sense. But let's take it a step further, right? So let's say now they have launched, they have a validation that at least some sales are coming in.
Right.
And there is one case that we come across all the time, that we have generated a MRR of, let's say, 10-15 lakhs per month. Now we are doing an ARR of probably 4 CR, 5 CR, and they are stuck.
Right.
They are stuck. They don't know what to do beyond that, right? What is your suggestion in that case?
So I think it depends on why they are stuck. First, we need to look at the business, look at the numbers, that why they are stuck. Are they stuck because they are not, they are stuck at a certain ROS, that we only want an ROS of 5 or 4, right? Because as we know in online space, when you go after a certain demography, your ROS will drop. Is it because of that? Is it because of the product line? They are only focused on, let's say, 1 or 2 products and they don't want to expand. So it depends on why they are stuck. Once we figure out that, only then a solution will be recommended. But I would say mostly the problem is either the limited product line, or the limited targeting, or the limited scope of ROS, or the limited scope of margin in terms of balance sheet. So either it's one of the 3 problems that they are facing. That's what make them stuck at a certain revenue.
Right. And I feel that it's that different kind of marketing is required at different stages. Right. So what helped you go from 0 to 1 may not be able to take you from 1 to 10. This is a common problem that we come across. But in MSMEs context, it's even more difficult, because again there is a informational gap between who is helping them out, where they are intervening, right? But I was asking more from the context of what marketing channels to deploy, and channels not in like platforms. Like what are the areas they should go for it? If you have to give 3 channels that they should focus on after reaching a certain stage, what according to you that would be?
I think marketplaces are must. We should not leave that out. So marketplaces are there, and then I guess one channel would be organic channel. That organic brand presence should be there. Either you are small or big, you should appear on searches, right? And third, performance marketing on traditional channels like Meta and Google. So I think these 3 are the channels that you should be focused upon. The mix will be different for different brands. Maybe some brands are marketplaces heavy, some brands are D2C heavy, or some brands, I would say, maybe organic heavy, SEO heavy. But I think these are the 3 channels you should be focused on.
Right. And what is your suggestion on how they should go ahead and structure their marketing and sales team? Because I also feel that there is a lot of rift which comes in to such organizations. I've given one example in the previous podcast, where this company which was doing like thousands of crores, they didn't have a single marketing person.
Right.
It was all sales team. And one thing that we see is there is a rift. So, what kind of mindset I think the founders or the management should adopt in this case?
I think first should be that if they are trying something new, then they also need a new perspective into the team. It cannot be like we can carve out something from the existing team, which is not like they have never done something like this, and let's give them a steering wheel and let them drive. It will not work like that. You have to have a new perspective into the team, someone who already had experiences like that in the past. So hire a new perspective, hire a new candidate into your team, and let them sit behind the wheel and drive this campaign, right? So I think that approach is needed for a legacy business, because someone from a sales background will find it tough to understand how performance marketing works. So he will be impatient, and the decision making also will not be that good, and it all will be an inefficient approach.
Yeah, that's correct. But I'll also take different, let's say, trajectory to this to the conversation. So there was this one brand I was talking to. We audited their brand. They had spent close to 10 lakhs on Google ads, Google search ads for products, and they had meager sales of somewhere around 1 lakhs. This is just 1 month, one platform, one category I'm talking about. Now, what happens is when these brands go online and they fail, their first approach is that it doesn't work.
Right.
Right? Like everyone I talk to, they say that it doesn't work. We have tried it out, but you have not tried out other assets. You have not tried out performance marketing, performance max campaigns. You have not tried out catalog campaigns. You have not worked with supplement feeds. So this is one thing that I consistently see. But the tragedy of our industry is there are, of course, certain people, agencies who will just run the show, and they know that they are not expert at it, and rest of the people who are industry, they have to pay for it. What would you say to such people? By such people, I mean the founders of the company, not the
Right.
agencies, right?
Right. So I think my approach to this will be pretty simple. If something or some platform is working for my competitor, it should work for me as well.
That's such a right answer, correct.
If it
कोई
is
तो कर रहा है.
कोई तो कर रहा है. If it is not working for me, then I need to check my processes. Do I have the right person on the job? Is there something wrong with my process? Is there something wrong with my shipment, with my delivery process, with my platform? Because if something is working for my competitor, then it's working. Then it's me or my company that needs to figure out what is wrong and why it is not working for me. Then it is not a question that this process works or not. Then the question is if we can figure it out or not. And I guess that's the problem that founder should be solving.
Yeah, and one of my founder, this is a very good point actually. One of my founder friends, he mentioned once time that you cannot outsource the major problems,
Yes.
right? You can outsource the execution, but the problem solving has to happen internally. And I feel that this is a very good answer in the sense that sometimes when the brands, they are hiring agencies, they also have the expectation that they are going to fix our internal problems, which they, of course, they can't do, right?
Right. And I also feel, Siddharth, that right now the era we live in, it's very different from the era that legacy businesses come from.
Yeah, true.
Right. And they need to adapt. And I know it's tough. It's changing very rapidly, but they have to understand that what they are dealing with. So just to give you a context that what I'm trying to say. So I mean recently we have seen that Zomato celebrated and they invited comics to roast them.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen in India a public company making fun of themselves on a public platform?
It's mind blowing. Yeah.
Right, it's a listed company now. It's not a startup anymore, right?
Correct.
It's a listed company and they are making fun of themselves, their processes in a public platform, and they are laughing at it.
I haven't seen anything like that. Yes.
Right? And even if we go to, let's say, Nifty 50 or BSE 20, right? You go to them, any 50, 100 companies to them and say that, will you do it? I guess maybe 99.9% of the case the answer will be no. Right? But we have seen the kind of brand engagement they are getting out of it.
Correct.
So the era of marketing, the era of conversations around brands, the conversations around brand engagement, it's changing, right? So MSMEs of the world or legacy companies of the world, especially in India, they need to adopt. I'm not saying start roasting yourself directly,
Right.
but at least you need to find your communication. You
Yeah.
cannot be relying on, okay, we sell quality goods with competitive prices. That's not good enough.
Right. Very good point, and I would like to close it with this particular statement that I feel that marketing is almost like adventure, right? You have to take consistent, calculated risks. While we think it's true for the business, I think it's also true for one specific department of marketing. I see it all the time. In fact, I feel that over last 2 years we have also changed this DNA internally. I'm proud to say, by the way, we were one of the first companies in India to try the LinkedIn's product where you can run advertising using your own personal profile.
Right.
And I think this has become mainstream right now. When I scroll through LinkedIn, I see that all the time. But we tried that product, I think, at a time when I hadn't seen any brand running an ad like that.
Right.
So I feel that there is an element of risk taking that has to be there, which brands which are coming from, let's say, legacy, they are not able to go for it. And it's a key to, I think, success, where you can find this really creative elements.
Definitely. I guess some MSMEs cannot take that risk, to be honest. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you talk, some of them are operating on a margin of 8%, 6%, right? With a margin percentage of 6%, you will not be able to do a lot of things on online space because it's a very competitive space. It's an expensive space, right? So maybe those cannot afford it as much as a legacy business which is already sitting on a good gross margin, right?
True. In a
Right.
sense, yes.
So I think when we talk about legacy businesses which are doing good with a good gross margin, if they are not doing it, I guess they will regret it in the future. They are definitely going to regret it because I mean, generation which has grown up using digital platforms, they will not be able to relate with them. They will not know what those brands stand for. They might think they are premium, but that premiumness will fade away.
Eventually, yes.
Eventually, yes, that will fade away. So
Right.
you need to constantly remind the upcoming generation, yes, we are a brand, we are a premium brand, and when you go out, look for us and give us that premiumness that we command.
Correct. And this brings me to one particular brand I talked to last week. It's a Delhi-based brand with third generation person who is running it, and he is taking the brand online, right? Again, he's doing good ROAS, very good ROAS actually. But I feel the one of the reason he can't take Chris is the one you mentioned, that it doesn't have a great margin despite very amazing average order values. By the way, offline sales are amazing. They are doing 30 crores there, right? So I think, but taking it online will need a different strategy. Sometimes I feel even a new range of products.
Yeah, I mean, even if you see some of the bigger brands, so you see Bosch, you see Samsung, you see all these brands have different models online and altogether different models offline. So
Yeah.
when you go to an offline shop and you say, okay, I'm getting this Bosch washing machine at this much price on Flipkart, they will instantly say, boss, that model is different.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see. I also see this. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that is one strategy that you can follow,
Hmm.
right? Maybe a slightly different model or a slightly changed product in the offline and online space.
Correct.
If you want to have different pricing for two different channels.
Right. But I think this brings us to the end of the conversation, Nitin. Anything specific you would like to add before we end?
Just one thing that I guess I keep repeating throughout the podcast is that if you are not going online, whether you are a legacy business or you are an MSME, you will regret. And I say this to all my founder friends that money in the bank means nothing if you are not using it to expand or if you are not using it to grow your business. Eventually, it will become nothing.
I hope you listen to that, guys. So let's catch up in the next podcast. I think I had a great fun. I think there are a lot of things that we did discuss. And if you have any questions, feel free to write it down in the comments below. I and my team are quite active there to respond to it. See you. Bye bye. Have fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.